Good evening, hello and welcome. You're watching Viewpoint. I'm Anusha Soni. The National Assembly in Pakistan was dissolved on the 9th of August after its term ended. A caretaker government in the neighbouring country under Anwaarul Kakar has been formed with 16 federal ministers and about 3 advisors. Amongst them is Mushaal Hussein Mullick. She is the wife of Yasin Malik. We all know who Mohammad Yasin Malik is. He is the man who was found guilty in a terror funding case and supporting unlawful anti-India activities. The man who was convicted by an NIA court and serving a life sentence in Tihar jail. The man whose deep-rooted connections and activities with Pakistan were aimed at fostering terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. All of these facts are not hidden. This man who became a pawn in Pakistan's proxy warfare strategy, allowing them to exert influence in the region through terror-driven tactics. At a moment when NIA is seeking death penalty for him, Pakistan's caretaker government's move to include Yasin Malik's wife in Pakistan cabinet has clearly raised concerns. Now, Mushaal Hussein Mullick has been appointed as Pakistan's minister's advisor, and the advisor is for human rights. The man who spilled blood in the valley for decades, his wife is now going to advise the Pakistan Prime Minister, even if it's the caretaker government, on human rights issue. What message exactly is Pakistan trying to send? Is this a direct message that Kashmir provocation will be rewarded and anti-India activities will be rewarded? More importantly, is this a move to appease the army establishment in Pakistan? Our focus on Viewpoint tonight.
भैया पाकिस्तान का मामला है, पाकिस्तान जो करना चाहे उसके लिए मुझे क्या कहना है। वो हम 2 मुल्कों की बात है, आप तो गुजारिश करते हैं, उनकी बात है।
क्योंकि एक कंट्राडिक्शन है, एक तरफ से अगर वो ह्यूमन राइट्स के लिए कंसर्न है, दूसरी तरफ से उस शख्स को इस जगह पर तैनात करते हैं जिसके हस्बैंड मिलिटेंसी में इन्वॉल्वड हैं।
Well, what does this inclusion in the government really mean? We're joined by our guest also who would be with us on the broadcast. We've got the expert. Right now we have Mr. Sushil Pandit, who's a Kashmiri Pandit activist, a very important voice from the Kashmiri Pandit community who have raised the issues pertaining to the kind of activities that were conducted in the valley, the illegal killings that had happened, and more importantly, Yasin Malik and his alleged involvement in multiple murders and cases of arson and looting. Mr. Pandit, thank you so much for speaking with us. Thank you for joining us on Viewpoint tonight. The fact that Yasin Malik's wife has been included in the present government or in the caretaker government of Pakistan, what does it indicate? And she'll be advising the caretaker prime minister on human rights. That's rather more interesting, to say the very least.
And the fact that she has had no background in human rights activism, she has no papers, no interventions, nothing, no qualifications worth the name to suggest that she could be a prime minister's advisor in Pakistan, very clearly shows that the agenda is to dare Indian state. I repeat, it's throwing of a dare to see if no harm is meted to Yasin Malik.
No harm is meted out to Yasin Malik.
Challenging the Indian state.
Yeah.
Yes, they're challenging the Indian state with a threat that we will escalate it into an international issue by appointing his wife, Pakistani wife, to such an important position, so that it becomes an international issue, an issue of eminence and importance, when a petty jihadi, a self-confessed killer, mass murderer, is tried according to Indian law, punished and sentenced. If that is what Indian state does, then Pakistan would escalate it into a human rights issue through his wife, who's no less than an advisor to a caretaker prime minister
I take that
in
point.
Pakistan.
Let me also introduce Mr. Rajiv Dogra, who's the former Indian ambassador, joining us on the broadcast. Rajiv ji, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on Viewpoint tonight. The inclusion of Yasin Malik's wife, well, the message I believe is pretty clear, that people who spread an anti-India propaganda will be rewarded in some form. Many experts argue that this is also the attempt of the caretaker government or the political establishment to reach out to the army. The relationship has been bittersweet in the last couple of years. But the fact that it's a caretaker government with a very limited term, do you think that they'll be able to create this propaganda, and will there be takers for it on an international stage?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. Now, coming to this question, the first thing that strikes my mind is, why do the Pakistanis do only half measures? Besides asking her to join as advisor to the interim Prime Minister, they should have also asked Dawood Ibrahim to become another advisor, because he could have collected hafta and helped the bankrupt Pakistan collect money. Then she could have used that propaganda much more effectively with a lot of money in her hand. Now, more seriously, just before this new government was sworn in, the previous Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, was literally requesting that let there be talks between India and Pakistan. Let's think in terms of peace, and let's think in terms of economic development. Now, within a week, I mean, they always say that a week is a long time in politics, but Pakistan is bent on making this week a horrible time in bilateral politics. Otherwise, there's no reason for appointing a person like her as advisor to the Prime Minister. What are her qualifications? Her qualifications are of a painter who paints half-naked models. So is that the advertisement for the new Pakistani cabinet? And is that the advertisement for human rights, of exploiting women? As far as Kashmir is concerned, her voice will not be effective, because hers is a voice of the Pakistani army. It's not going to be the voice of the so-called interim government, which is a puppet of the Pakistani army. So what are the intentions of Pakistani army? They are not directed towards United Nations General Assembly or towards G20 in South Africa, because people are clever, people are wise, they know what are the tricks, so they will not be fooled by this propaganda, but they would be aware that if she has been appointed, then Pakistan has some designs which cannot be called peaceful designs towards India.
There are no peaceful designs against India. Mr. Sushil Pandit, I think today is an occasion that we should talk more about Yasin Malik. The fact that he evaded the clutches of law for decades, the fact that he's been on record, quoted and admitting the offences that he had done during the violence that panned out in the 90s against Kashmiri Pandits and the community, the abductions, the killings that he has done. And finally, the process of justice caught up and he was arrested and convicted. There are various other trials which are still happening against him. And there is a demand that all cases that have been shut down should be once again reopened and reinvestigated.
You see, I wish I could share your enthusiasm on that. Yasin Malik has been prosecuted and convicted in a case dating 2016. This was terror funding case.
That's right.
This was case of waging war against India and belonging to a banned organization. It had nothing to do with massacres, killing, rapes and abductions that he committed 30 years back, 32 years back. In fact, those are the heinous crimes he should be tried for. 2, NIA took more than a year to appeal against life imprisonment and ask for death penalty when a clamor came up that, you've let him off lightly and you have not prosecuted him for the most heinous crimes. Number 3, I have a complete disagreement with the approach of Government of India.
Okay.
Justice Neelkant Ganju's murder was not a standalone murder as a result of enmity between him and his killers. Likewise, Director Doordarshan Lasakol or Shri Tikalal Taplu or Shri Premnath Bhatt or Girija Tikku or Sarla Bhatt and thousands others who were at the receiving end of jihad did not die because of these standalone atrocities against them. There is a pattern. This was a community targeted in order to cleanse them out, commit a genocide. If you treat them as standalone murders, it is like missing the forest for the trees.
No,
And these
you're
standalone
right.
murders.
This has been the demand of the community.
Give me 10 more seconds.
Sure.
If you try them as standalone murders, as happens in the peacetime, as happens in a civilized society, sometimes, these crimes happen, you are actually whitewashing a genocide. By treating these crimes as standalone crimes.
No, you're right. And this has been a long-standing demand from the community that these should be seen in the light of a violence that happened against a community and not standalone instances. We also have Mr. Farooq Renzu Shah, who's a former bureaucrat, and Mr. Kamar Chima, who's a defense expert, joining us on the broadcast. Good evening to all of you. Mr. Kamar Chima, coming to you and taking in a view from you, the fact that Yasin Malik's wife, Mushaal Hussein, has been included in the caretaker government, help us understand what her credentials are. The fact that her husband is facing serious charges here in India and the kind of track record he has had, it clearly raises questions about the designs of the caretaker government or the entire posturing of the political establishment in Pakistan.
Well, I think this is I'm so disturbed to see that the panelists here calling that why she can't be an advocate of human rights. Well, 10 years daughter of Yasin Malik and his wife, they both are asking for respect for Yasin Malik. They're asking that their father and her husband should be given a fair trial. The state of India have put them behind bars because you are powerful. You have made the entire Kashmir a jail. You have put the Kashmiris in jail. You have taken away the fundamental rights and the wife.
Let's, Mr. Chima, I'm aware. No. Let's not get provoked into an argument here. Let's address it one by one. Mr. Kamar Chima.
That's the only.
No, Mr. Kamar Chima. First of all, I don't think any human or legal rights of Yasin Malik have been taken away. He was charged under a certain case. There's a special court that heard his case, convicted him. He has a right to appeal like any other convict in this country. Old cases which the Kashmiri Pandit community have been talking about, they have yet not been opened. So I think there is no plausible or substantial argument for you or anybody to argue that his legal rights have been taken away. In fact, the argument is that the process of law took more than 3 to 4 decades to catch up to a criminal like him who had openly admitted to crimes. And the fact that people like you support the likes of Yasin Malik shows that you are clearly supporting criminals and terrorists in this country.
Okay, the problem is that the law is not taking the courts in Manipur, in Gujarat and many other cities of provinces of India, but the law is taking
Give him some education, please. Kamar Chima,
the Kashmiris and they
there
don't
are
have a
more
right
than
to
100
live.
convictions in
We
Gujarat.
understand. We do understand that
there are hundreds of people serving
second.
sentences in
Mr.
Gujarat.
Kamar Chima, I think when it comes to the internal affairs of Pakistan, there are far more things that I can argue when it comes to Balochistan, when it comes to various other provinces, or the fact that the economy is in a very bad condition right now, in a dire situation right now. Let's not get into the internal matters of each other. Sir, why don't you speak on the merits of the case? Why don't you speak on the merits of the case? What are the credentials of this very respectable woman to be included as an advisor to the caretaker government? Please explain that to me.
I think this is not a big deal for the state like India, which calls itself a mother of democracy, asking for a basic fundamental right for its citizens.
None of the fundamental right of any convict in this country have ever been taken away, including Ajmal Kasab. All have been accorded a fair trial in this country. Let me also bring in Mr. Farooq Renzu Shah into the discussion.
Yeah.
Sir, I don't think I'm going to get a direct answer over the credentials or the reasons why Mushaal Hussain has been included as an advisor to the caretaker Prime Minister. But it doesn't take too much of grey matter to add 2+2. We all know that this is perhaps a kind of message that the caretaker government is giving to India and also to the army establishment.
Yeah, I tell you, this act has now completely exposed the Pakistan fully now. Now, Pakistan has been from a 490, from the Ziaul Haq's time, they have created a chaos in our society, in Kashmir society. They brought the Islamic fundamentalism, those streams, 7 streams of Islam which were not existing. This was the Nizam-e-Mustafa type. And rightly, one of the panelists has rightly said, Neelkat Gunju was killed broad daylight. And the political party of that time, ruling class, were against them, let them be killed for 8 hours. Not a single policeman, cop, not a single politician, not a chief minister, not a DG came on spot and to save the dead bodies even, not a live body. Even they could not save the dead body. That was actually, Pakistan was the creation of the violence. Now, I remember the same way they are using the Kashmir name. When Chouan Lai met Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah in Algeria, and they had to give our 11,000 square kilometer of Saichen to Pakistan, to China. They have to give them. They have to give them our Karakoram to give them. They used the name of Kashmiri leader and who has consented it to be gifted to the China. Our Sharai Abrashim was gifted to the China by same Pakistan. Pakistan is responsible for all our violences. Pakistan is responsible for mayhem. Pakistan is responsible for creating that class which has really.
So Mr. Rajiv Dogra, is it fair to conclude that any successive government which is sworn in Pakistan will never have an approach towards India which is about mending ties, restoring peace, resuming dialogue? Because the kind of messaging which is coming in, at least from the caretaker government, it's a completely anti-India position. Yasin Malik is a convict in this country. To have his wife appointed as an advisor on human rights, and with due respect, she has no credentials on being appointed as an advisor for human rights. I mean, I would have understood had she had a background, she was running an NGO or certain other activities. It's a clear anti-India message. I'll come to you, Mr. Kamar Shima, on that. Mr. Dogra, please.
Well, you are right, absolutely. You are right, absolutely right, that one cannot depend on Pakistani establishment or its governments to act in a manner that promotes peace and amity between our two countries. But I must make a slight correction.
Sure.
The previous governments, whether of Benazir Bhutto, Nawaz Sharif or Shehbaz Sharif recently, they had at least tried in the beginning to take some steps which could have led to a dialogue. Not exactly peace, but led to a dialogue. Because even during their times, a large amount of terror had taken place and large amount of anti-India activities had taken place. But after those initial steps, they also fell into the same pattern that army dictates relationship with India. But this government, this new government, has exceeded all the expectations that anyone had, that this government will take some time at least to come to the army's track. This government has hit the ground running with a totally anti-India agenda by appointing Mushaal Hussein. And yesterday, in one of its first official spokesperson statement, they have listed 2 things which are extremely anti-India. One is on the human rights issue, the other is the safety of the cricketers when they come here to play cricket matches. Quite forgetting that only recently there was a Pakistani hockey team which went back very happy and absolutely safe and sound. So Pakistani agenda has changed drastically, and I think we have to look seriously in the future at what exactly their plans are.
Mr. Kamar Shima,
I don't
Mr.
think
Kamar
they can
Shima,
be,
I will
peaceful.
reiterate the question that I tried asking you earlier. And I hope there's a direct answer to that. Why is Pakistan interested in the case of Yasin Malik? More importantly, the direct question to you is he a stooge of Pakistan here in India?
Can you repeat the question?
Is Yasin Malik your stooge in India? Why are you interested in his case?
Well, anyone who is talking about and asking for their fundamental rights and they want that the Kashmiris should get a fair deal in India, you are calling them a stooge? So all those who are asking for the rights in India are the stooge. The people in Manipur are the stooges of China. So this is what the former Indian army chief had to say, that, oh, this is being done. So the question is, those who talk for the rights, you call them the stooge? The people in Manipur are the stooges are they talking for China? The Kashmiris are talking for Pakistan. What is an idea of India? Why people are not standing with you? Why you are so much
So we'll deal with Manipur. Why don't you talk about Yasin Malik? So we'll deal with Manipur. We are aware of the situation and we are a democratic country. So we'll deal with Manipur. We have nothing to hide. You go ahead and tell me why is Pakistan so interested in Yasin Malik?
If a lady who has been asking for her husband to be released is a problem for India? India is a country of 140 million people.
Yes.
Why you are disturbed with lady? You understand? This is a Hindu
Yasin Malik, it's an
rights.
elected government. It's not a Hindu majoritarian government. Secondly,
it's an elected
it's an elected government. It's not a Hindu majoritarian government. Unlike Pakistan, we do not have the Sharia law in India or the Hindu law in India. It's a country run by constitution, sir. I know you're aware of this, aren't you?
I wish you should help Mushaal Malik to get her husband released.
How many
Please
times? Well, it is even contested the number of times she's visited India or he has visited her. Many people argue that this entire case of somebody trying to get back their husband is not really the right case to pursue, keeping in mind the kind of offences Yasin Malik has been convicted of, and God willing, a lot of cases need to be opened against him, which were done decades ago, and he needs to be tried for that as well. I want to cut across to Mr. Rajiv Dogra as well. Mr. Rajiv Dogra, it's interesting that Mr. Kamar Chima says that this is a lady who's fighting for the right of her husband, and the fact that she is appointed as an advisor on human rights, I believe, is a joke of sorts.
Well, I actually pity your Pakistani guest, because if you had asked him the same question 2 weeks back, when there was a sort of a democratic government in place, he would have admitted, yes, she is got questionable credentials, and Yasin Malik has committed huge crimes, and he should be tried as a criminal of the worst kind. But today, he is afraid for his own human rights in Pakistan, because army is watching his every sound and every utterance. So I pity your Pakistani.
I mean, I don't even want to get on that whataboutery about the so-called records of human rights in Pakistan, how minorities are persecuted, how temples and churches are attacked, how forcible conversions happen, how there is an uproar in Balochistan, how the country is on a brink of an economic collapse. Well, we still wish you well, sir. We have Mr. Sushil Pandit, and I want to give him the last 2 minutes. Mr. Sushil Pandit, why don't you remind Mr. Kamar Chima and many others who claim this to be a human rights issue, the quote-unquote credentials of Yasin Malik, the convicted terrorist in this country?
Thank you, Anusha. First of all, Pakistan trying to give lessons in democracy, human rights, secularism, equality to anyone in the world is a joke. And the gumption they display in publicly uttering these words while not looking at their own record is in itself hypocrisy of the highest kind. As far as Yasin Malik is concerned, this man is a self-confessed mass killer. He has killed the leading lights of Hindu community to terrorize us. He killed them in cold blood, in point-blank range. He abducted hapless women, defenseless women, and had them gang raped. He has 28 FIRs of heinous crimes pending against him. I think not just prosecuting him, we must prosecute those who have stalled prosecution against him. We must prosecute those who issued him a passport despite these crimes. We must prosecute those who who allowed him to go to Pakistan and get married to Mushaal Hussein while he was facing prosecution in India. We must prosecute every complicit who has given him a halo of a martyr.
Getting disturbed. Why?
Halo of a martyr.
Mr. Kamar Chima, it's our internal matter. We have an Indian citizen in our country. Mr. Kamar Chima, listen. Mr. Kamar Chima, this is not a Pakistani national we are talking about. I would have understood had it been a Pakistani national who was being so-called prosecuted here in India, and Pakistan trying to... I mean, why don't you worry about the fundamental fundamental rights in your country? Forget fundamental rights. Try saving the constitution in whatever
Human
form
rights
it
are
exists.
universal. It has nothing to do with nationalities.
I would be really happy if you can teach a lesson or two about that to your own government and to your own political
We can
establishment.
talk about Pakistan's human rights, but we were talking about how Yasin Malik is being treated.
How is he being treated?
More than 1,000
How is he being treated? He's treated like any convict in this country would.
Our voice will be more powerful now, and you are disturbed with the voice of a woman. India
No,
is
we are not
disturbed with the
disturbed.
voice of a woman.
We are not disturbed with the voice of a man or a woman. This is not a woman's issue.
Empowering women in India.
This is not a woman's issue, sir. I get your attempt to trying to make it a issue about a woman trying to seek justice for her husband. Unfortunately, it's not that. It's a terrorist who has been finally convicted in this country, and the law and the due process of law will take its own course. The attempts of Pakistan to internationalize this issue, I'm afraid, will not really work. I thank you all for joining us on the broadcast. The inclusion of Yasin Malik's wife is a clear indication that the political establishment is trying to appease the army establishment. And secondly, the anti-India propaganda is at work. We talk about that story, and here on Viewpoint, our upcoming focus is the SBI research report. A report that reveals that middle-class income has tripled since 2013. Is that really true? Is that really the substance? Joining me live on the other side are two big faces of this debate. We'll have Mr. Nilesh Shah, who's the MD of Kotak AMC and the member of the former Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister. And also joining me is Deputy Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, T.S. Singdo. Gentlemen, both of you will be with us on the broadcast for now. We are slipping into a very short break.